It's a simple story and it's a complex story, and maybe Josh and I might differ on the origins. I guess you could go way back to like the days of the punk and the metal bands of high school and all that as the sort of inspiration for making music as brothers. But I think that Marketplace really began during this epic road trip that we took down to Northern California, Yosemite Valley.
It sort of happened because I was traveling.
Josh had just gotten back from backpacking all the way from Panama back to the United States.
I came back home and Chris and I went down to Yosemite Valley in our old blue van with like $300 cash and like some mats in the back, and made pancakes. And
we had a sack of pancake flour and a bunch of pasta, and we threw down and we cooked food and we spent time together, but we had guitars and we wrote music.
Every evening, this was like before you had like internet on your phone or whatever, we would just jam around the campfire. So we started writing songs, and really the Marketplace aspect, I think, came out of post 9/11.
And all of a sudden the content of the music started to shift from this sort of good time party music that we were making as high school students to a little bit more substantive in its messaging, and then from there we landed back, and
9/11 happened. There was a drum beat for the war in Iraq, and we decided the Marketplace was the right vehicle for just kind of speaking up, right?
Sort of the events of the early 2000s began to unfold, and university and exposure to different ideas.
So, trying to figure out how do we make songs with 2 acoustic guitars, because that came out of our busking time. How do we make these folk songs sound big, and how do we use them as a voice to talk about the things that we think are important?
And all of a sudden, Marketplace begins to catalyze around a message, an activist message that we needed to sort of rise up and tackle some of the challenges we were seeing. And so just more music followed, I guess.
Hi, I'm Solomon Hergesheimer. That was Marketplace. But our story, it doesn't start here. Our story is a tale of 2 brothers. And put simply, it starts when chaos shook the globe. An attack on American soil. The catalyst for an imperialistic war and the unjust killing of up to 1 million people. The effects of which we still feel in our society, nearly 25 years later. Inspired by the tragedy and lies that led to the invasion and occupation of Iraq, 2 brothers took to the stage. Chris and Josh had been playing music together for many years by the time the events of September 11th took place. But both being college age and ready to fight for what they believe in, they took up arms. And by arms, I mean axes. In the minds of the brothers, a revolution was building. The exposure to new ideas brought about by university life, combined with the paradigm learned backpacking through South and Central America, was running freely through their veins and exploded into music. I mean, during the early 2000s, the Vancouver busking scene was at its peak. Everywhere you went, be it the street, the SkyTrain station, or even the SkyTrain itself, overflowed with creativity and art. People with instruments creating the beating atmosphere above the humdrum and traffic of the big city. No different were Chris and Josh. After the older of the brothers returned to Canada from university in England, they began to write. And write they did. Songs of hope, resilience, freedom, and revolution. Powerful calls to action. Beautiful ballads of change. The music of Marketplace was inspired by themes of anti-imperialism, environmentalism, reflections on technology, mass marketing, anti-capitalism, and the fight for social justice. But in 2004, after 3 albums, one of which was never released to the public, Marketplace ceased to exist, until now. Back in September of last year, while looking through an old box, I discovered the Marketplace CDs. And it's not like it was the first time I was hearing this music. See, I was raised on this music of change and revolution, but it struck me in a different way now that I was grown up. I realized then that the themes that Marketplace talks about in its music didn't go away. I mean, the music is almost more relevant today than it was 20 years ago. So I brought back Marketplace, first for a single show, and then for a tour. We traveled all throughout BC, playing shows, even teaming up with my Uncle Josh, the other original founding member. In this documentary, we will go over the beginnings, the recordings, the eventual retirement, and the brand new future the band now has 20 years later. Thank you so much for watching Everybody Breathes, the Marketplace story, and I hope you enjoy.
photos on your wall, truly scratching the bathroom stalls, but we can scream louder. Oh!
They say we need more information.
Yeah, so I think I was looking at some photos that my mom had, and there was photos as far back as I bet you I was 11 or 12 of Josh with this red electric guitar and me with these cool cat sunglasses on this black acoustic guitar. So I think it was probably grade 7.
My grandfather was a minister, and his wife was the organist. And when we were growing up, she taught us each to play, church music on the piano. Didn't really vibe with, a lot of the church style aspect, but that the piano gave us the musical background to pick up the guitar.
We had kind of a rock punk band, garage band called Overdub.
We started, punk band, get on stage and go crazy, and your teenage friends. We had not a garage band, but a laundry room band with Dan Hodgins. In his laundry room, we'd be halfway through the practice, and Mom would come in to have to load the stuff, and we'd wait.
And we performed in the church basement where my dad was the pastor. And
because within 3 chords, Chris was on stage, man. He didn't need to know any of the chords, maybe the A minor finally, but he was just like, let's get out there, let's do it. And, me being able to keep up and accompany him.
And the bass player left, Phil, and so we made a band called Minus Phil, and then we rocked out for 3 or 4 years with Minus Phil. And then when that high school band era kind of fizzled out, Josh and I, kept on writing music, moving more to acoustic guitars, and then combined with all those other influences that we talked about in the world, and we started creating a different kind of music, a music with a message, and a music that connected us more deeply as brothers too.
And then when we went in the folk direction, it was really to try to figure out how do we write songs that are sparse enough to let the issues speak, but also be entertaining, because 2 guys crooning on acoustic guitars can be the most boring shit, because they're singer-songwriters. It's supposed to be like way more emotional just because, but if the music's not engaging, like, the message is going to suffer too, so.
Hey, what's your plan? I ask big businessman. To monopolize, he says, and disguise our lives. And I said, hey, corporate pharaoh, just let my people go.
I said, stand strong, stand fast, cause people, this way of life, it can't last, so just hold on. Whoa, people, we got to stand as one when the final battle comes. Okay.
Not a lot of sound guys can keep up with Chris, so he'll get in there, and the sound guy's still cabling up, and Chris is already, he's like, okay guy, let's burn that first track, and we would lay down a track and then bounce to the next one, and 3 and 4 in, and the sound guys, they needed a break. They'd never worked with anyone who was so fast. So when we found Bobco, we showed up at his house, he got us in the kitchen, mic'd it up, had good quality mics, and just sat and rolled tape, and Chris and I just played, and it worked out so well that he was our recording engineer from there on out.
Yeah, when they'd come by, they were, I don't know how many times we recorded, 3 times maybe. Yeah, they'd always be well rehearsed, and they would just whip it out. Very little overdubs, if anything. Maybe there'd be a bass part. It was pretty tight. It's pretty, guitars always sounded pretty good, and I didn't have to do a lot. I was listening to those recordings, and yeah, they still sound pretty decent.
Not to pump my own tires, but we were really well practiced when we went in to make those records. And of course, I'm not a perfectionist by any means. We'd do maybe 3-4 takes of a song, and if it was good enough, and if it captured the spirit, I think, did it capture the energy, the vocal intonations? Was it the take that made us feel like it sounded when we were playing it live? And if we got that, and I was a tad off key or I missed a note, it was more important to capture that energy.
Simple setup. I didn't have a lot of elaborate gear to sell a client on recording there. I don't even know if I had a regular desk. I just had kind of audio interfaces and probably a pretty modest mixer. And yeah, not a lot of computer gear at the time. If computer recording was just starting, to take over. And that was really the only reason I could make a living, because I think I just had a 4-channel, 4-in 10-out card is all I had. And even to get the 4, I had to convert 2 of the analog to SPDIF to get 4 tracks at once. 2 vocals and 1 on each guitar. And I think I went back and I learned that Crowded Subway, just the chords, they're simple enough, but yeah, great songs, right? A good song doesn't need a ton of flash or something, but it just works well on the guitars, and you can hear it when they play together.
But send your lullaby to coax to sleep all the lies that we live by. Was Samuel, and he'd been working for the man every day of his life. He said, we're all looking for changes here, but I never see them coming on, and when they do come, they're never on time. Or he said,
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. In 2004, after 3 years and 3 albums, one of which was never released to the public, Marketplace moved on. Josh and his newlywed wife moved to England. Chris also got married and a couple years later had a baby. And the time they once had for revolution was ripped away by our modern lives. I mean, times change, and people do too. When I first started this project, I thought it'd be simple. 5 or so minutes of compiled live footage spliced in between some interviews. I don't know. But throughout this project, I've really found a legacy. A legacy that now lives on through me. A legacy of revolution, a legacy of change, and a legacy of Marketplace.
I don't know, it was a bridge between music and activism and values. And I think that's what makes it worth capturing, is that it's that bridge, because here I sit 44 with those same values, those same core values, and I will continue to fight, and I will continue to raise awareness, and I will continue to care for people, and try to create a more just and equitable world so that everyone has the opportunities to thrive. I don't believe that we can let overreaches of power and environmental destruction come to dominate. And so yeah, it's a story about a band, but it's a story about values at the end of the day.
But what happens every day? We see how easily nothing can make you free. My world is humanity. Have you ever wondered what life was like elsewhere? Have you ever dreamed of anything more? Will we even be here tomorrow? Or do we care anymore? Wondered what life was like elsewhere? Have you ever dreamed of anything more?
even be here tomorrow.